Hi everyone, I'm Anna with the Potomac Company, here to show you how to make these Rivoli earrings. They have a very simple bezel around them, which covers just the edge of the earring, or just the edge of that Rivoli. And I've also added a post earring back to these. A lot of the earrings that I've made and I've seen made have the shepherd hook earrings on them, but I wanted to do something a little bit different so that I didn't actually see any of that metal piece to the earring from the front. And so I thought the best way to do that would be to try to take advantage of these post earrings. So I'll show you how to do that and how to create a little basket or cage for the post on those, or for the pad on those posts. I showed these to my husband and he said that they looked like the Victorian era. So we're going to go ahead and use his name and call these my Queen Victoria Rivoli drop earrings. So in these earrings, I have some 14mm Rivolis. These are the luster color. And I really love using the luster color in this because it has such a shallow little cage around it there. That bezel only really covers the very outer edge of the Rivoli. And so you see practically the whole Rivoli. And when it's hanging on your ear, you see, of course, right through it. The lusters, just for those of you who have not had them before, they have a coating on both sides, and that's how they get their color. So they're a little bit different than most Rivolis that have this foil back to them. So on one side you have all of that lovely color, and then on the back you have that foil. That's how they get their color, and so that's necessary. And for most projects, that's fine because you don't really need to see both sides. You just kind of see it, you know, from the top. But the lusters, because they don't have that foil back and they just have this, you know, overall coating, they work really well for projects that you are going to see both sides. They have a very light and airy feel to them, so I love them for this earring here. So materials, in addition to that 14mm Rivoli, you're going to need the post, and these are a flat pad post with a 6mm pad. And I've got a pack of them right here. So they have a 6mm pad on them, which means that this little disc here is about 6mm. And that's what I'm going to create a little basket around and slide that post or slide that pad right into that little cage or basket, and then cinch that up to hold that earring on. You're also going to need some backs to your earrings. I have clutch backs here. You can use the rubber ones or the metal ones, whatever you prefer. I also have 2 colors of 11-ohs here, and you can use one if you prefer, but I have the 2 colors here, and you can see I just kind of like that two-tone look to really highlight the outside edge here. So this outside edge that I actually have for the sample and for the earrings that I'm doing today is my galvanized champagne. And then my second 11-oh color is my Montana Blue Gold Luster. You're also going to need a 1 color of 15s, and I have a dark bronze here. In addition to the beads, I'm going to need a needle and thread. And I have a size 10 needle here, and I have a 0.006 wildfire beading thread, and this color is Frost. And then always nearby, I have a pair of my flat nose pliers just to help me thread my needle, and it also really helps me to help pull my needle through some of my beads if I get in a tight spot. And then I have my thread cutters or my thread burner nearby, and some super new glue for my knots at the end. So So I'm going to go ahead and set up my mat here with all of my beads that I need, and then we will get started. I have my mat set up here with my 2 colors of 11-ohs. My first color here in the champagne is going to form the outside rim of the bezel. And then the second color here that I have is going to form prongs off of that outside rim on both the back and the front. I also have about 2.5 feet of thread here, which I've added a stop bead to. And you're going to need just a short tail here, just enough to add a needle to and tie off at the end of the project. The first step is going to be just picking up 34 of your rim color and letting those fall down to your stop bead. Once you've got those on, you're just going to make a little loop here, and I'm going to take my needle back through just the first 2 next to my stop bead. And if I pull tight, I'll have a nice circle here. Next, I'm going to pick up 2 of my secondary color, and this is going to start to form the prongs on either side of that rim. So I'm going to pick up 2 of my 11s here in the secondary color, and then I'm going to take my needle and run it back through the 2 11s on my rim that I've already gone through. So when I pull tight, my blue 11s here, which are going to be my prong, should be sitting right snug up against the 2 in my rim. And now I'm going to just repeat that and pick up 2 more of my 11-ohs in that prong color and go back through the same 2 11-ohs on my rim again. So now I should have 2 prongs sitting next to each other, each with 2 of those 11-ohs. I'm going to take my needle and run back through, or continue forward here on my rim, and I'm going to go through 4 of those rim beads, and I'm going to repeat the same steps to add 2 prongs on top of the last 2 of the 4 that I just went through. Picking up 2 of my prong beads and running back through the last 2 of that 4 that I just passed through. Picking up another 2 of my 11s here and going back through the 2 on my rim once more and pull tight. And now I have 2 sets of 2 prongs, each with 2 11-ohs. So if I look at it from the side here, I have my prongs and I have 2 11-ohs in between each set of prongs. I'm going to continue around here and repeat these steps. So I'm going to go through the next 4 of my rim, pick up another 2 11-ohs to make a prong with, pass through the last 2 there of that set of 4 that I just ran through, give a nice tug here, pick up another 2 of those 11s. For me, it's this blue color, and I'm going to run back through the 2 on my base again, or my rim, back through the same 2 beads, and make sure that these prongs don't cross each other. You want them to be sitting right next to each other, because once we are done adding them, we're going to separate them, and one's going to be on the front of my Rivoli and one's going to be here on the back of my Rivoli. And I'm going to continue adding these prongs until I have a total of 8 sets running around my rim here. I've now added a total of 8 prongs, or 8 sets of 2 prongs running around the outside of my rim. I have a gap here of 4 rim beads between the first and the last set that I've added. I've also taken out some of my 15s. I'm going to add those to my project right now. I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to run through the next 3 in my rim. The next 3 beads there after that last set of prongs that I added. I'm going to pick up 15 of my 15-Os. And then I'm going to take my needle and run it through the last 2 here that I ran through on my rim. So I should now have a loop of 15 15-Os and just a gap of 1 11-O here in the base or on my rim between that loop and the first and last prong. I'm going to take my needle and thread and run through the rim here through the next 3 beads, just so that I'm coming out on the other side of that the 2 11-Os there underneath my prong. And I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to jump up to my prong here and run through those 2 in my prong. And I'm going to work on just one side of my Rivoli here, or one side of my bezel for my Rivoli. So I want to separate these prongs, and I want to make sure that I'm just running through the prongs as I work around my bezel this time. I want to make sure that I'm just going through what's going to be the top or the bottom set of prongs. So now that I'm running, I've got my thread here facing, there's a gap between my first and last prong. I'm going to pick up 4 of my 15s. And then I'm going to pass through what is the last set of prongs that I added. Pick up another 2 15s, and I'm going to pass through the next prong on what is going to be the top side or the front of my bezel. So I want to make sure that as I'm traveling down the bezel here, I'm separating these prongs and I'm picking up only what is going to be the front here. And I'm going to pick up another 2 15s and run down through those next 2 prongs, or those next 2 11-Os in that prong. And I'm just going to keep adding 2 15s between the prongs until I've gone the whole way around this front side of my bezel. And if I give a little tug here, you can see how that is starting to form, and cinch that up so that that will cover just over a little bit of my Rivoli. After adding 2 15s between the prongs and 4 15s up here under my loop between the first and the last prong, I also ran my thread through this inside loop of beads so that I could tighten that all up. So now all the prongs that I ran through and I've cinched together have now all moved to the inside of my rim, and that is going to be the top of my bezel when I put it on my Rivoli. I now need to repeat these steps and add some 15s to the prongs here that are still open. So what I'm going to do is just take my needle, and whatever set of prongs here I'm coming out of, I'm going to take my needle and run it through the rim between those two prongs. And then I'm going to jump up to the prong opposite of the prong that I started out on. I'm going to flip my bezel here, and I'm going to pick up another 2 15s to add between the bezels, or between the prongs here. And I'm going to just continue like I did on the opposite side, adding those 15s between the prongs. And then remember to add 4 15s between the first and last prong on either side of that loop there. Now before I cinch this tight, after I've done that, I want to make sure that I add my my Rivoli in there. I don't want to cinch these up tight before I've added my Rivoli. So I'm going to continue and just add all those 15s, and then I will be back to show you how to add that Rivoli. I've now added all the 15s here between my prongs on this back side of the bezel, and you can see it's pretty loose. I've not pulled it tight yet. I'm going to drop my Rivoli in there and just give a nice tug and start to cinch that up. I'm going to hold my Rivoli in place and continue around the whole inner loop here, the whole inner circle, all the beads that I've just added, the 15s and those prongs, and hold that Rivoli in place and pull tight as you go. And as you work around and pull tight, those prongs and 15s should cinch up there to move to the inside here. So now you've got the back and the front the same, covering just the outside edge of your Rivoli. I'm going to continue around here. I'm going to continue around this circle one more time, just to get myself back to my loop at the top, and then I will be ready to add the post to my earring. I'm going to continue through the 4 15s here that I have on either side of my prongs here. So I've gone through this 4 15s, and I'm going to take my needle and thread and jump up to my rim here, and I'm going to go through 3 of these beads on my rim so that I've got my needle coming out of one side of my loop here. So I have my needle coming out of, oops, need to give this a little tug. This is why I always keep these flat nose pliers handy. So I have my thread coming out of my rim here, just at the base of my loop. I'm going to start to make my little cage for the post, or for the pad on that post earring that I'm going to add to this. So as I work, I'm going to work around the loop here, and I'm going to add in a peyote stitch 15s to the outside of this loop. I'm going to pick up 1 15 and I'm going to skip the first 15 that I have at the base of my loop, and I'm going to run up through the second one. And this is just simply a peyote stitch. And I'm going to continue around the whole loop until I've come all the way around to the other side. I've gone around my loop here working in a peyote stitch, and I've got 7 15s that I've added to the outside of my original loop of 15. I need to add one more 15. I'm going to pick up that 15 and travel through the 2 11-0s here at the base in my rim. And now I've completed that peyote stitch, and I've gone around my entire loop once. Coming out of my 11s here at the bottom, I'm going to take my needle through the first 15 that I picked up when I started working in peyote stitch. So my thread is coming out on the outside of this loop here through that first 15 that I picked up to begin my peyote. I'm going to pick up 2 15s, and I'm going to travel through the next stitch in my, or the next 15 here that I've added for my peyote, and I'm going to continue around basically working again in a peyote stitch and picking up those 2 15s and going through my next 15 on the outside of my loop. When I pass through the last 15 in my loop, I'm going to pick up another 2, and I'm going to continue. I'm going to pass over this base, my rim here, and I'm going to go through the next 3 15s on the outside of my loop. So I'm going through the first 15 that I went through on my last pass around this loop, and the 2 that I actually picked up to add as I worked around. And I'm going to continue around here in another peyote stitch, picking up 1 15 this time and adding it between the set of 2 15s that I picked up. I'm going to pass through my last pair here. And now I've completed another loop and added to the outside of that loop, my original loop of 15. I'm going to take my needle and pass through that 15 on the very outside edge there. One of the ones that I added, the first one that I added on my last go around the loop. And I'm going to pick up 1 15 and again work just in a peyote and going around the loop one more time here. Picking up just 1 15 as I go. And I don't want to pull real tight yet. I'm going to add my post to this before I pull real tight, just like I had to add my Rivoli to my bezel. And now I've completed my pass around my loop here, and I've gone through the first 15 that I added on my last go round and the next bead here. I'm going to take my post and drop it into my loop here, and then I'm going to give a tug and pull all these beads real tight. I'm going to actually go through all these beads again. So I'm actually going back through, just tracing my steps back through all these beads on the outside. I'm not picking up any beads. I'm just tracing back through the outside beads and just pulling as I go, just to cinch that up. And once I've gone around here once, I'm going to need just 4 of my 11-Os. In whatever color you want to use. I'm going to use my champagne. And now to add my 11-Os, I'm going to again work just in a simple peyote stitch, but I'm going to pick up not the 15 that I normally would, not the next 15 that's sticking up, but the one after it. So I'm going to count 2 of those 15s that are sticking up, and I'm going to go through that second one. So I'm going to pick up 1 11, skip the first 15 here that's sticking up, and go through the next 15. And I'm going to repeat and pick up 1 11, skip the first 15 that would be sticking up, and go through the next one. So I'm actually going to pass through, or go through the 1 2 3, the 4th 15 that is on the outside, that was on that outside loop that I added. And repeat, pick up 1 15 and count to the second 15 that I would go through for my peyote stitch and pull tight. And I'm going to add 1 more 15 here, or 1 more 11, and I'm going to go back through the 15 that I was coming out of when I first picked up my 11. And I can travel back through these 11s and pull these tight just to kind of cinch that up so it's nice and tight there in the center. And now all I'm going to do is just tie off this extra string, and my earring will be complete. And there you have it, 1 completed post Rivoli earring. Hope you guys have fun, and thanks for watching.